Hello, this is Joseph Hornacek, and I am doing a podcast for PCP Robot and the merry-go-round of PCP Robot. It's just a random thoughts and doing reminiscing about what happened in 1995 to 1999. Actually, it was about 1995 to 2001. So I originally made the 20-minute segment with from the TV show 30 Minutes of Madness. It was an idea from some graffiti that John Ryan did, and they decided that I should make the movie for it. So I originally wanted to make a real movie with actors and big sets and a big budget and make it a real neat science fiction movie. But what really caught my attention to keep it going was the ideas that I had for certain art. Um, I was always into art, but for some reason I wanted to really make this an artistic wonder, as if you will. Um, I ended up making little robots because I went to Puppets because I was at the Dixieland Flea Market in Pontiac, Michigan, about, I don't know, say 1995 ish. And someone was selling a whole bunch of boxes of old VTR parts, videotape recorders, for what was probably from an old school, like an old college or something. They were for 3/4 inch tapes, but the machines themselves were pretty messed up. But if you opened up the machines, you could find some pretty cool electronic parts. So I was able to dissect these machines and take all kinds of old circuits and ribbon wires and PCB boards and divide them up all into little boxes and stuff. And yeah, it was just like having a big Lego collection set, except there were electronic parts. And I didn't really know how to solder electronic stuff, so what I ended up doing was going to the local craft store, which is in Michigan, Metro Detroit. We have Michael's, and they always had some cheap clay that you could bake in your oven. So I was able to sculpt these robots together and use a hot glue gun and spray paint and made a whole bunch of PCP robots. And that was the beginning of PCP Robot. We had access to a commercial high camera. It was a $10,000 high camera that you can get from the local public access television studio. And we were already, my friends and I should say, were already checking it out and making videos. And so it had a macro lens, I remember, and it kind of looked almost like film because the quality of the height camera was so nice. It's probably the best height camera that you could have access to, and height was the only video medium that compared anything to regular film. You know, if I could, my dream was to always do stop-by-stop frame animation with a 35mm camera for this project. But since I going back to figurines rather than real people, I decided to do some puppeteering, and we made a little skit of the arts. I should say the artistic ideas that I had. It became the closest to what I could come up with at the time with the budget we had. We never had any money, you know. Basically, just threw the clay in my parents' oven and took them to the backyard and spray painted them down, and then hot glued them together. You know, they made little cardboard sets. So, 1996 to 1997, we made a 20-minute cut of of PCP Robot. So it ended up on 30 Minutes of Madness, and I ended up wanting to take the project to myself and do more with it because of constraints and um, not having to worry about, well, he gets this and I get this and this is what it's called. Basically, I'm gonna make PCP Robot by myself, for myself and others who share the same ideas as I do. I'm just gonna protect my ability to want to have my creative ideas work as best as I can and be as big as they can be. So what I ended up doing was making this big set in about a 12-foot by 15-foot room in Troy, Michigan, 15-mile and Livernois. There was a place that I have rented with a bunch of other people, and the people that I rented with were people that I worked with at a club called Clutch Cargo in Pontiac. So Pontiac had a lot to do with this project, because if it wasn't for Pontiac, I would have never got the VTR parts. I never would have got this place to stay, built this awesome studio. So got a lot of love for Pontiac. I ended up delivering pizzas there later in life, but I kept this analogy. I ended up finishing off the set finally after 2 years, and at the time I couldn't get the expensive high camera. I had to use like a Sony action cam, if you will. I don't know if it's called the action cam, but finished off the videotaping, and it's just trying to convert it to HD, and it doesn't work. And it's kind of mind-boggling and frustrating because I worked so hard on it for 2 years and ended up with a Super 8 tape. Now everything's 4K. I'm waiting to get a 8K camera next year if they ever put it out. But it was kind of neat to get. What I wanted to do was stop video and all the production, keep the formula in my head, wait 10 years and wait for new technology to come out, try to buy a house. So that's what I did. Worked hard as a carpenter, tried to buy a house, but when I entered the market when it was a bad time to buy a house, so I lost the house and ended up getting into computers 10 years later, though. I learned a bunch of stuff, took some classes, and got into HD, and now we got the GTX card and a little studio in a basement. And so now I'm trying to finish the merry-go-round skit, Make It Something. So the best thing I got is a website, www.pcprobot.com, and I'm just salvaging all this old height footage, trying to make a soundtrack for it and release it in some form. I'm also gonna, organize a bunch of art and put it on the website. I'm basically putting everything I can into the website until I get some funding or something to do more. What I'd like to do is get some kind of building where I own the real estate and have people come in and be able to watch the movie and walk through this building as if it was a museum. And then the other side of the museum would be the studio where I could develop more sets and more movies and possibly other things. So getting back to the merry-go-round, it was a place in Troy. It was a building, and the room consisted of painted walls, and in the middle of the room there was this stand that kind of looked like a piano, but when you see it, it wouldn't look like a piano. And what I ended up doing was going to Frankenmuth and picking up some Christmas tree stands that rotated. And the thing about that was you can get these Christmas tree stands, you plug it in, and everything on it, you could plug something into it, and then it would rotate, and you wouldn't have to worry about the wire wrapping around each other. Just keep going. And I ended up buying another one somewhere at Kmart, I think, because they had a cheaper one. So I had two merry-go-round with PCP robots on them, and then I had some spacey looking cosmic gooey yellow things with electronica on it, and at the top it was a spinner of a glass mushroom cloud type robot. Which all that stuff ended up kind of collapsing and falling apart, and I repaired them so many times that you couldn't put them back together anymore. And I decided I wanted to make PCB robots more stable. Next time I make a robot, I do want it to be designed so it is more like a toy, or something mechanical. Because then it'll last, thus, mass producing it and selling it. So when I do ask for funds, that's another thing I want to try to do is make the robots so they're stay together in one piece. Maybe have a case for them or something like that. And I want these ideas to be right and work. But what's the point of doing it otherwise? I enjoy it, and if other people enjoy it, then it could be a toy. People can have fun with it. It's really simple. It's merry-go-round sculpture that I made. I spent so much time because I actually had to live in the room. So towards the end, I had to move back home to my parents' house, and I had to, take one piece of furniture at a time into my parents' house, live there for the last month and a half, and then try to come up with a script and all the camera shots, And the only thing that I had was the soundtrack, and the soundtrack consisted of a slow musical thing, and then it sped up with a beat, and it was electronic music, and then had a spot where a little robot monkey played a horn, and then that's basically it. I ended up filming the robot, and I got about 20 minutes of footage shot. So I wanted the skit to be 20 minutes long. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm thinking of somehow converting it to HD, where I can maybe have it look small on the screen in some ways, or use some of the effects and make different things out of it with computers, or combining new HD footage. One cool thing about the sculpture is I used these old light brights. Well, they weren't old. At the time, they're 1990s style light brights. You can go to Toys R Us. They're about $30. You can get the light bright, and what I ended up doing is I needed some kind of art to go into the sculpture. So I took about 4 light brights. I took some electronic gadgetry and placed it on the light bright, and then put like a white cardboard over the top of the light bright. And then I put certain pins into the light bright where it lit up in a artistic way. And I thought it was cool. I had 4 different ones on the sculpture, and it ended up working out pretty good. I still have the light bright stencils, but after moving so many times from then, it's been about almost 20 years. The light bright stencils are old and crusty now, and they need new light brights to go into, because I ended up getting rid of all that stuff because I had nowhere to store it. So the light brights were really cool, and I almost ended up fixing it up and having them shipped to California for an art show that some of my old buddies were doing. So that was cool. And then some of the stuff I didn't know how to build, because it would either require I use a bunch of finished wood and a bunch of little finished nails, or I could try something different. So what I ended up doing was I had acquired a copper pipe cutter. It was like the type of cutter that it's got a roller blade on it, and a roller blade. Actually, it is a roller blade. This little blade kind of looks like the blade that goes into a roller blade skates, and you clamp it down onto the copper, and you spin it around in a circle, and then the copper breaks. So I was able to sculpt these copper pieces together and actually solder them together with connectors, and I use that for some of the structure of the table that I made. So I was kind of thinking of redoing the whole thing all over again, um, in HD or 4K, because I already built the thing, and if I had to do it over again, I could build it fast. Just get the material and do it over. Um, the only problem is I don't know what I want to do, and I'm kind of running out of time. It's been so long, I have to live a daily life. So if there was any interest that happened to fund such a project, um, I would need help with storyline and character development, basic things, and then as far as the art, I got the visuals down. I just don't know what I'm doing with them. So I know that I do want to keep trying though. I'm not gonna stop or give up on these type of things. So I end up getting this white uh, animal fur type material, and I use that as for the ground for things to walk on. And then in between the two merry-go-rounds, there was this little piece of uh, glass. It's kind of like a little cube with a magnifying glass in it, and I'd put some charms in there, and I hung it on top of a electronic um, piece that I dug out, and the robot goes up to it and pushes it over, and things happen. And then at one time, I had about 100 robots, 100 different robots, and the idea of PCP Robot is to also incorporate old synthesizers such as Moog and sequential circuits and Korg and um, all these old keyboards that came out, Lindrums and stuff like that. I always thought that was fascinating itself, like being in a studio, electronic studio or music studio, and just looking at all this equipment and hooking it up, like almost gave you this vibe that you were making PCP Robot already, studying electronics and things like that. And it always fascinated me to just be in the presence of these things that these companies make, like Roland and um, Bose. They make the drum machines and lights and stuff like that. LED lights were always fascinating to me, and it's a certain way you could capture that art and make visuals just for that was almost good enough to be in a movie by itself without any story. But I do want to try to incorporate a story into the mix, and have a script or whatever, something to go off of, especially if it'll help make money, so I can make more PCP Robot stuff, So I ended up making all these robots, and it was pretty cool. And I ended up getting film pictures of them because back in the '90s, digital cameras weren't really that big yet. Um, and I ended up getting into keyboards too. So I have a lot of music recorded already that I'm trying to keep secret because I'm waiting for this project to get done. And some of the music is pretty good stuff. And it would be cool to have an influence on others to do the same thing with electronic keyboards. I almost feel that we're out of touch with what we're supposed to be in touch with as far as futuristic things, uh, like these keyboards. Um, they were made in the 80s and 90s, and they made all these. Well, actually, they were made in the '60s, but when I got into them, it was in the '80s and '90s, and we used to joke. We used to say, with all the digital stuff that's coming out after, um, the analog stuff was still the future, and someone even came out with an album called the Forgotten Sounds of Tomorrow. The main purpose of just getting everybody together and trying to spread more momentum in the community of music and electronic synthesizers and drum machines is just that it doesn't have to be at a bar where someone's drinking beer. It can be in a living room party. It could be like a club where people want to hang out, and don't have to worry about um, going to the bar to pay admission. You can still make money. Charge admission through your living room and just have people come in your living room and hang out, or have it at a backyard party. You know, it just so many times going to a bar just to do that wasn't working out. Not everybody wants to hop in a car and go to a club on a Tuesday night and, go into the bar where you're expected to drink, you know. Um, and it's hard to get that momentum when you do it that way, so that's one of the reasons why I stopped playing music. I did have a side project called the W Vibe with another person where I basically played drum machines and keyboards and got him to learn how to do it and let him be the vocalist on some songs. And it basically stopped because I didn't agree with his musical knowledge of how things should be constructed in a song. And I didn't like how the fact that we were always playing bars and that was it, and that he was spending any money that we made on beer. I thought there was more to it than that. So I pulled away, and I now have access to all kinds of electronic music software. I really like what the Adobe Creative Cloud has come out with lately. I would like to go back to talking about the merry-go-round, though. The merry-go-round the theme was yellow. The colors are yellow, turquoise, and pink. Yellow, different shades of yellow, pink, and it's supposed to be turquoise, but you never really see it. I did put some gold in there. The merry-go-round had the 4 light brights, had the white carpet grass, and then I had this thing that was supposed to be like a transporter where I transport the robots into being 8-bit sounds and sprites, where it have an offspring of a skit inside the skit, and the art that it transports into is an old maze-like plastic piece from a toy underneath a magnifying glass. I always had this idea of making magnifying glass art, and it was always intriguing to me, but it is what it is. As far as that thing that I built in that room, I also made a bird where the robot flew around, and then I hung up some art pieces, some artwork that was in the room. I made some canvases, and if I were to do the art room over again, I think it'd be a good idea to make some canvases in the room with the painted walls, and then after the artwork is all done, you could put frames on the canvases and sell them. I also had things hanging from the ceiling. I had the robot that played the horn, and he was hanging from the ceiling. and I had one light in there that I tried to incorporate into the skit. And if I ever were to do the skit over again, it would be cool to have a drone fly around and have more sets in the room as well. Maybe a 360-degree set or something like that. It would be cool to have robotical things happen, like robots moving by themselves. One idea I had was to put a bodysuit on and have a miniature robot using nanotechnology, and just have actors move and have the robots, do whatever the person was doing, because he would have the sensors, so you could actually be the robot and have a movie made. Probably use drones as the camera. There's a lot you could do now with it. And I would have eliminated the light and had a bunch of floodlights from the ceiling or the cans. Another thing I did was I had this old traffic light that we got from this scrapyard, and I thought it was the coolest thing to have a traffic light in the sculpture. And I actually had two different traffic lights in the sculpture. And I always thought, yeah, that'd be kind of neat. Have the glass robot mushroom cloud in front of the traffic light. Because for some reason, I always thought the PCP Robot puppet medium was cool to have traffic lights in it too. Like different color traffic lights, or just traffic lights for this, traffic lights for that. And, if I were to do it over the PCP Robot, do another room, I would actually have the traffic light. Thank you for tuning in to this podcast. For all of you viewing on YouTube, please subscribe. And I hope to have more videos like this. Hopefully more talking about the merry-go-round, because that was such a big project. But I will do other podcasts about PCP Robot.